In the post-game show earlier today, we ran out of time before we could bring you an interesting piece about Andres Cantor, the man who calls every World Cup game, that's every single one, for Spanish television, and who's become famous for his pronunciation of one word. We'll see that piece in a few minutes. Also still ahead, a look back at the Brazil-Netherlands game and a study of why the World Cup truly deserves the word world.
ABC Sports presents the World Cup post-game report. From our studios in New York, your host, Jim McKay.
Who said there are no goals in soccer? What a soccer game we saw there today. You know, guys, I suspect that what they're going to be writing about tomorrow and showing us diagrams of that may not be quite correct is the second Brazilian goal, the one where Romario may or may not have been offside.
Yeah, Romario standing offside as the ball gets headed forward, and there's a new interpretation. Traditionally, Romario will be offsides.
All right.
Right about here.
There's Romario on the right of the screen. Clearly, in the traditional sense, offside. However...
All right, you have to be clear. Romario is offside right now. Bebeto is onside. But look at Romario. You can see that he has absolutely no intention of being involved in this play, which makes it so that Bebeto is the only player. All right, and since he's onside, the play was called correctly. Those officials have to be commended because they did what FIFA told them to do, regardless if you agree with the rule or not.
But that's a new interpretation of an old rule that was made before this championship, in which they explained to all you players.
FIFA came to us a couple days before the tournament, explained all the rules, and this was one of them. They gave us an example exactly like this. And, you know, everyone's going to say, oh, he was offside, but in reality he wasn't, because he made it clear to everybody that he didn't want to be involved in that play, and you can see by his body language and his actions.
Okay. Well, two games have been played today, and here are the results. Netherlands-Brazil. Brazil moves on to the semifinal to play the winner between Romania and Sweden, which will be played tomorrow. Italy has moved on to the semifinal with their win over Spain. They will play the winner between Bulgaria and Germany. It is shaping up as some semifinal.
Welcome back to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, where Brazil has defeated the Netherlands 3-2, along with Seamus Mallon. I'm Roger Twybo. In Seamus' second half, I think will go down in history like a fine bottle of wine. People will pull out this tape or talk about this and just savor these moments, because this was spectacular stuff.
It was spectacular, and Brazil has lost in the past some great games like this in the World Cup to France and Italy. But let's take a look here now. We're going to see it once again why this is so controversial. Okay, roll it forward, and we'll see the player in the offside position coming up in just a moment here. Romario clearly, stop. Romario clearly walking this way, very casual, sort of disinterested, allowing the ball to go through, and Bebeto at this point clearly okay. And the Dutch central defender stops. They all stop a little bit because they think Romario is clearly offside. Now, what Alexi Lalas says is that, yes, indeed, all of the players were told by FIFA officials that this was now going to be not called, but why did they protest so much then, I guess is the question. They should have known it. So here comes the winning goal. Bronco just blasting it. Typical Bronco blast off the post between two players, Romario and his shadow, Falks, for the whole game, in off the post, and that's the winner.
Unbelievable second half as Brazil advances to the semifinals. 3-2 win over the Netherlands. For Seamus Mallon, I'm Roger Twybo. Thanks for being with us from the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Jim McKay will be with you in just a moment with more.
It took Sir Laurence Olivier years on the stage to accomplish his final stature. But it has taken Andres Cantor just one word. The way he says it, frankly, sounds more like a hog-calling contest than a commentary, but Spanish-speaking soccer fans absolutely love it and him. Armin Kateyan of ABC News has the story.
14 years ago, from Lake Placid, New York, came this classic call of sport.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Now from Miami comes the signature sound, the very soul of World Cup soccer.
We really get into the game. I mean, it's our passion. It's pretty much our lives. And, you know, we go every game and I say we're the last.
31-year-old Andres Cantor calls every World Cup game in Spanish. Not from fields of play, but a TV studio at Univision, the Latin American broadcast giant.
It's like doing 52 Super Bowls. I'm sure that people would like to get a crack at one. I'm getting a crack at all 52 games.
Cantor's long-winded howl has become sweet music to millions of Latins. And mimicked by Americans caught up in the cup.
That totally makes the whole game. I mean, that's all you look for in the news is the highlights of goal, goal.
Well, I think his record's 45 seconds now, isn't it? Not many of us can hold our breath that long.
Yet the Argentinian-born Cantor is hardly a one-word act. Since 1987, he's announced 75 matches a year and traveled the globe for this assignment.
I took the extra time to go around trying to get the right pronunciation on each of the players on each team. Of course, it's very difficult. I mean, when you have Bulgaria playing Greece and I'm speaking Spanish, you know, the chance is that I'm not going to call every single last name the way it's supposed to sound.
But the beauty of Cantor's words, his rhythms, are how easily they translate. You understand when he praises a goalie for saving his nation.
Campo, Campos!
Or scolds him for being careless with the ball.
Campo, 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 Jorge.
Cantor's calls are a main reason Univision's ratings are reaching far beyond its Spanish-speaking World Cup audience, rivaling ratings of games broadcast by U.S. networks. Still, broadcasting up to 4 games a day can leave Cantor and his color commentator, Norberto Longo, a little punchy. But Cantor stays focused on his biggest goal.
If, I can do my bit, and if I can make this game a little bit more exciting to the American audience that perhaps doesn't like this soccer that much, it really makes me happy.
From this little corner of the World Cup, Andres Cantor is doing just that.
The word world is tossed around rather frivolously in sports, as in World Series, which is really, of course, the American series. Not so in soccer. It's truly a worldwide sport. It's reported by Richard Gisbert of ABC News.
It really is the simplest of games. Take some kids most anywhere in the world, give them a ball and a patch of dirt, and you have a soccer game. It can be in Zambia, in the snow in Romania, a welcome distraction from the troubles in Northern Ireland, or a way out of the shanty towns of South Africa. When it's played at this level, it is a simple game. But when it gets to the World Cup with the whole world watching, it gets complicated. It gets political, and occasionally, it gets dangerous. Dangerous for people like Colombian Andres Escobar, who paid for the goal he scored on his own net with his life.
The World Cup has actually been blamed for starting wars. The seeds of the 1982 Falklands War between Britain and Argentina may have been planted at the 1978 tournament.
In 78, Argentina staged the World Cup, and at the time, it was a regime of the military generals. And the generals stopped spending money on boring things like roads and hospitals and schools, and they spent all the money on the World Cup. And so Argentina won the World Cup. Everyone was in the street shouting, Argentina, Argentina, and the generals were very happy. They thought this safeguarded their popularity.
4 years later, when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, it was seen as another attempt by the junta to bolster its position. The first soccer war was in 1969. Thousands died when El Salvador and Honduras went to war for a week after this World Cup qualifying match. Soccer can also be a symbol of peace. In March, a game was staged in Sarajevo between the locals and peacekeepers. The idea was to convince Bosnians that under the new ceasefire, it was safe to gather within a few hundred yards of enemy lines. Today, Bosnians say that game was a psychological turning point for a city under siege.
For this city and for my friends, there's hope. Hope for life, because we think that that game gives us moral, that Sarajevo will be like it used to be, and everything will be just fine.
But the war goes on, and in central Bosnia this week, when government soldiers weren't training their guns on Serbian targets, they were kicking a ball around. The World Cup affects the war of nerves between the U.S. and Haiti. When Haitians watch the games on TV, their government flashes anti-American messages. Some believe Haitians have been so preoccupied they won't even notice the full impact of economic sanctions until after the final on July 17th.
When they will wake up on July 18th, then they will realize that for a month they have been in Pollyanna world, and they will wake up in hell.
With the people distracted, the World Cup can be politically useful. This Nigerian opposition leader won last year's elections, but the military government waited until Nigerians were celebrating a World Cup win to arrest him for treason. The poorer the country, the greater the emotional investment in the tournament, the greater the likelihood for some kind of political intervention.
Take Cameroon, I think that's maybe the best example, where the president actually picked Roger Milla at 42 years old to play in the team against the wishes of the coach, purely in order that Milla would score goals and then the president would become more popular, he thought. And in fact it worked. Milla scored a goal, he was one of the best Cameroonians in the tournament, so maybe the president has a better view of things than the coach.
In Italy, where World Cup broadcasts are hosted by leggy blondes, sport mixes with sex and politics. When running for prime minister, media tycoon and soccer team owner Silvio Berlusconi needed a catchy slogan. He borrowed the rallying cry of the national soccer team. Forza Italia, the political party, was born, and after one election is undefeated. On the economic side, Brazilians are so focused on their team, everything shuts down. The estimated loss of worker productivity here during the tournament, $3 billion. Some people need the break more than others. Reports from crime-infested Moscow are that crime rates have dropped by 70% during the tournament. Mostly, though, this World Cup will be remembered for the joy it has brought to fans around the world. But as long as the sport moves people to wave flags, those people had better get used to politicians getting involved.
But is it that sad? Because if it were just 11 guys in shirts running around and kicking a ball at each other, who would care? It's because it matters that it matters.
And for the more than 2 billion people who will watch the final, no sports event matters like the World Cup. Richard Gisbert, ABC News, London.
Well, the celebrations are going on right now in Italy and Brazil because they won today's games. More tomorrow at 3:30 for Desmond, Armstrong, and Alexi Lalas. I'm Jim McKay saying so long.